So if you're looking at the metaverse as maybe Roblox, a game that maybe your 12-year-old plays, if you have kids, your vision of the metaverse is way, way, way too small. I don't like the idea of the metaverse, and therefore I'm going to close my eyes and it doesn't exist. If I could go back to 2013 and invest in Apple, I would be investing at about $15 a share. The reason that some people miss how prolific the metaverse is, both now and how prolific it might become in the future, is because they don't really know how many people are there and what they're doing. If we want to sell, we need to sell where people are and where people are spending money. All right, guys, how would you react if I told you the metaverse was dead? How would you react if I told you the metaverse is going to be part of the future of almost everything that you do? How would you react if I told you that both of those statements are true? That's actually my position. Now, the word metaverse itself is one of the reasons that we get this incorrect argument that the metaverse is not going to catch on. And I say incorrect argument because I'm not going to argue with a prediction for the future for the most part. I'll give you a few predictions, but mostly I'm going to give you numbers in terms of what is happening right now. In fact, there are about 400 million regular metaverse users. That's about 80 million more people in the metaverse than there are in the entire United States of America. Man, woman, child, baby, senior citizen. The reason that some people miss how prolific the metaverse is, both now and how prolific it might become in the future, is because they don't really know how many people are there and what they're doing. We're going to cover that. We're going to talk about how expansive the metaverse is, how Apple's Vision Pro just rocketed it several years into the future, and then how you can position your business for the growth of the metaverse. Now, I want to tackle one super quick argument up front, one additional argument, and that is I don't like the idea of the metaverse, and therefore I'm going to close my eyes and it doesn't exist. That's actually a deflection. That's an answer to an argument that nobody is really making. I don't really like the metaverse. I don't like TikTok. I don't like a lot of things that are happening on the internet right now. But as a wise man once said, or maybe it was a wise woman, or maybe it was a lot of wise people, nobody cares what I like. If we want to sell, we need to sell where people are and where people are spending money, whether or not I like it. All right, guys, before I get to the good stuff, I want to give you a super quick bonus to making millions and millions of dollars in the metaverse, and that is to hit the like button, please. Also, leave me a comment. On one hand, that helps to stimulate the algorithm. It helps this video to get seen, but I also want to know what you want me to cover about either e-commerce now or the future of the industry and where commerce in general is going. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell so I can continue to try to help you make more money. All right, we're going to get into the good stuff, but I hope you guys like stories because I have one for you. When I was in the Marine Corps, I was probably a senior captain or a young major, and I knew a guy. He was a Navy lieutenant. We happened to be stationed together, and his name was James Giles. Now, to protect his identity, we're going to call him Jimmy Giles, and nobody will ever put that together. Now, Jimmy and I, we clashed a little bit. We were both, I think, pretty strong personalities, and sometimes we got along really well, and other times we really clashed. It's just kind of the way it goes with type A personalities sometimes. But one thing that always stuck out to me was a conversation we had in our relationship, and it might have been about late 2012, early 2013. Jimmy was telling me about how he had made some money in Apple stock and he had cashed out. I don't remember if he completely cashed out. I don't remember if he cashed out, part of it. I just remember he had made money. I remember a specific number that I won't share with you because I think it would be kind of private. And if Jimmy, if you're out there and you watch this, I hate you for making so much money on your Apple stock. Now, I remember during that conversation, I remember Jimmy telling me that he made this money. And in my mind, I remember this conversation vividly. I remember thinking, man, I blew it. I really missed out. I'm late to the party and I missed my opportunity to make money in Apple stock. But if I could go back to 2013 and invest in Apple, I would be investing at about $15 a share. And if I kept that investment until now, if I invested maybe $5,000, that $5,000 would be worth $60,000 today. If I had invested $10,000, it'd be worth $120,000. You can do the math with what you think you wish you would have invested in 2013. In fact, if I had invested in almost any big tech company in 2013, I would have made a killing. Whether it was Google or Microsoft or Facebook, Meta, or Amazon, or just about, again, any other big tech company. Now I'm going to ask you, if you could go back in time, if you go back to 2013 and invest in Apple at $15 a share, or what if you go back to 2007 when they launched the iPhone and you could invest at maybe $3 or $4 a share? Would you do it? What if you could go back to the early days of Amazon, like back before you had to spend a bunch of money on PPC? You could list garbage. You could list absolute nonsense on Amazon, run no PPC, and make millions. Tons of people did it. What if you could take your great products that you have now back to Amazon 2009, 2010, and just blow the whole thing up? Would you do that? What about YouTube or TikTok? What if you could make videos of really low quality in your garage or your basement back in 2018, 2019, and then just hit the pandemic and get millions and millions of views? Would you do that? I think the answer is yes. And the reason you would do that is because you can look back in time and you can recognize those as frontiers. You can recognize those as times where people they invested a lot of energy and effort, and then when they hit a certain precipice, they blew up. We're talking about the same thing in the metaverse right now. We're looking at a frontier where people and businesses, mostly big businesses right now, are investing their time because they see it as a major frontier. Now, remember when I said the metaverse was dead? And the metaverse is going to be part of the future of everything that you do. The reason I said that is because in the not so long-term future, we're not really going to make a distinction between the metaverse and the internet. All of the VR and the AR, the virtual reality and the augmented reality that we're seeing in the quote-unquote metaverse right now is really just going to be part of the internet experience. And you're not going to have to buy a $3,500 headset in order to enter the metaverse. All of the big tech companies that you're using right now are building out AR and VR experiences that they want everyone to have as part of their everyday experience on the internet. And that's why all of these big tech companies, Meta, Google, Microsoft, Nvidia, even Amazon, are racing to control the AR/VR experience or the metaverse experience. That's why so many big brands like Nike, Prada, Wendy's, Doritos, Gap, Express, Hyundai, Samsung, that's why these big companies are racing to position in the metaverse. They're marketing, they're advertising, and they're selling. So if all of the great big tech companies are racing to control the metaverse, and so many of the great big brands, conglomerates even, are racing to position in the metaverse, do you really want to hold to the position that the metaverse is not going to catch on? So the first thing we have to do is we have to clear up what the metaverse actually is. And chances are it's not nearly as futuristic, it's not always as game-oriented, and it's certainly not as narrow as you probably think it is. And for those people that think they know what the metaverse is, even out of those people, they probably don't know how big it is. So if you're looking at the metaverse as maybe Roblox, a game that maybe your 12-year-old plays, if you have kids, your vision of the metaverse is way, way, way too small. The metaverse is an internet experience that is shared, immersive, three-dimensional, and virtual. Shared, immersive, three-dimensional, and virtual. So yes, the metaverse does consist of all of those gaming applications like Minecraft and Roblox and Call of Duty and Pokemon Go and the new Zelda. And it also consists of multi-use applications like the Sandbox and Decentraland, where there are retail experiences and gaming and business experiences. And then it also consists of purely business applications like the Omniverse or Microsoft Mesh. There are massive concerts in the metaverse. There are shopping malls and retail stores. Big companies are starting to sell in the metaverse in a meaningful way. There was a McKinsey report that I read recently that says that by 2030, there's going to be $2.6 trillion in annual commerce in the metaverse. Now, we've established that it's massive. It's already massive, 400 million users. There are tens of millions of dollars in revenue transacting per month. There are real estate transactions and business transactions and consumer goods transactions. But there are still people that are going to argue that it won't catch on. Now enter the Apple Vision Pro. Now, for those of you that know me, I am the furthest thing from a gamer. I could care less if I go the rest of my life and never play another video game. But if I focus on what the Apple Vision Pro does at the tactical level, I'm going to miss what Apple just did at the strategic level to change the game. Just like a lot of people missed what Apple did in 2007 when it launched the iPhone. The iPhone was really a pocket computer, by the way, with a pretty sweet camera on it. Not just another cool phone. But when Apple gave us the iPhone, it wasn't able to give us all of the experiences that we now enjoy on the iPhone. It gave us a piece of hardware that could now run those experiences. So there was a race, if you remember, around maybe 2007 to 2015, there was a race to create apps. It was the hottest thing in business startups to create apps that could run on a smartphone, particularly the iPhone. Apple gave us the hardware and the experiences followed. With the Vision Pro, Apple didn't give us the metaverse. It gave us a new piece of hardware, and there's going to be a race, there is already a race to create experiences that are now possible, that weren't possible just a month ago. Make no mistake, this is not just another VR headset. Tim Cook told us very deliberately in June 2023 that this is a spatial computing platform. What is spatial computing? It is real augmented reality. It is designed, unlike Meta's product or Samsung's or any before this, it is designed to bring the virtual experience out into our real world, into the real world. It is designed to bring the virtual experience into your living room, into your workspace, into your dating experiences. This is, again, real augmented reality. This is digital reality in your living room. Apple has finally allowed for a real experience of mixing the physical and digital worlds. Again, it is not just another headset, just like ChatGPT was not just another AI program. So on a broad level, that is what the Vision Pro just did. But if we take just a second to get a little bit more specific, there are three things that the Vision Pro just did that are going to hit the fast forward button in regard to the metaverse. Number one, as I just mentioned, there is going to be a race to create those experiences. There's going to be business pouring in to create in order to fit a hardware capability that didn't exist, to create experiences to fit a new hardware capability. So there's going to be big tech, there's going to be startup software engineers creating new experiences that people have never seen before. Number two, The metaverse is just back into public discourse. Remember how popular it was in up until about mid 2022, and then all of a sudden, ChatGPT was launched in October of 2022, and the metaverse was just completely overshadowed. Now, generative AI is not going away. ChatGPT is not going away. It's going to become more and more important. But people, again, have their eye on the metaverse the way they did a year ago, maybe even more so. And then number three, there is just now increased technological development. Now we've got a real race for augmented reality. We don't just have Apple, but there will be competitors to Apple. And if you really break down what it takes to create something like the Apple Vision Pro, nano sensors and nano chips and semiconductors and all kinds of components, those are going to be getting better and better. And if you remember back to the beginning when I said the metaverse is dead, what I meant by that was not that it's going away, but it's just going to be part of the actual regular internet experience. And the way that happens is when eventually these great big clunky, headsets go away. They either become smaller or there are other technologies that bring that digital world out into the everyday physical environment. For those of us that are still clinging to the, I just don't like AR or VR. Well, fine, but you know who's not rejecting it? Gen Z. They are all up in it. And they're spending money all up in it. And just like I said at the beginning of the video, where's the best place to sell products or services? Where people are and where people are spending money. Now, I've got 4 strategies for you, and you can look at those in one of 2 ways. Number one, you can look at those things you should start looking at for your business, or you can just look at them as things that your competitors are already doing to get ahead of you. Number 1, in-game advertising. Yes, we said the metaverse is much broader than just gaming, but there is an insane amount of traffic here. If you look at those games that we talked about, like Roblox and Call of Duty and Zelda and whatever, there are tons and tons and tons of users, millions and millions. You can advertise there to get in front of a lot of people, and it can look like any number of things. You can advertise on the back of a jersey or a uniform. You can advertise, have your products just placed out into a gaming situation. You can have them placed on signs in bleachers or roadside signs. And you can pick between the different games that or gaming applications where you think your customer demographic lives or spends time. There are a number of platforms that you can use. One of the most developed is BidStack. You can get in BidStack. They will make you get on a sales call, but you can set up an account, and then you can shop for the best gaming applications and the best applications within those games if you want to take that route. Number 2, buying land. Now you might think, well, as a brand owner, why would I want to buy land? Well, retail stores. There are actual retail stores in Decentraland and in the Sandbox, and some of those retail stores are owned by big brands like Nike and Prada and Gucci. So you can go that route if you like. You can invest if you have maybe a Capital Holdings LLC or something like that in your business, like I do. A lot of brands do. They hold different assets in a separate LLC, so you can hold land as an investment. Now, if you're thinking this is ridiculous, that sounds like a fad to me, there has been $22 billion in land traded in the metaverse. $22 billion. That is pretty well a legit industry at this point. It's been happening for years. It does not appear to be going away. If you are interested in buying land in the metaverse, you can buy it direct in applications like Upland or Decentraland, where you can go into the application and shop for vacant real estate parcels that are for sale. Or you can, if you're a baller, you can go on metaverse.properties and you can shop for properties that are already owned and they're back on the market. They tend to be more expensive. They tend to be just, looking for offers. You can go that route if you want. If you are looking at metaverse property, I am not an investment advisor. I am not an expert in real estate of any kind, but I will tell you that it seems to function very similar to physical property in the real world. Location matters, purpose and use matter, how close it is, proximity to other parcels, other types of parcels and businesses, all of that matters. The third strategy for participating in the metaverse with your business is taking out a metaverse billboard. You can do that through metaversebillboards.io or metazone.io, but they function very similar to a real billboard, but better. So if you look at a real billboard in terms of being able to market your product in a specific location, maybe near or in front of your preferred customer, ideal customer demographic, well, it's the same thing in the metaverse. The difference is it is in some ways measurable in the metaverse where it is not in the real world. Somebody drives by your billboard, you have no idea the impact that it has in the real world. In the metaverse, there are a number of ways that you can measure that. Most of those billboards are clickable. They can drive to a site. You can put things like discount codes on those billboards so that you can measure code redemptions. So they're very cheap right now. They're extremely inexpensive. You can probably won't even know if you want to experiment with some of those. You can get billboards for like $30 for a week right now. All right, number 4. This one is a little bit more, a little less specific to business use. Again, it kind of goes back to capital holdings, but this one would apply to you as in terms of personal investment if that's what you choose to do, and that is metaverse type ETFs and funds and investments. There are a number of those out there. You can look at maybe exchange traded funds like Global X Metaverse or ProShares Metaverse. Those are 2 ETFs. You can also look at the companies that are positioning, the tech companies that are positioning in a big way, like Meta or Nvidia or Google or Microsoft. I personally, when Mark Zuckerberg announced Meta and shares of Facebook fell, I invested in Facebook, and I invested right around the bottom, and they have recovered almost all of their value at the time that we're recording this. So if that's the way you choose to do it, they're relatively lower risk. And again, I am not an investment advisor. In my opinion, they seem to be a relatively lower risk because those companies tend to stick around. I'll give you one final thought before we close, and it's really why I'm invested in smaller companies and smaller businesses understanding what's happening in the metaverse. If you go back to, I would tend to be considered an early adopter of Amazon. I was selling on eBay in a way in, the early part of the century, 2005, 7, around there. Didn't get on Amazon until about 2009, and that was before PPC. It was a different game back then, but I would consider to be an early mover in terms of Amazon. I was not an early mover in terms of Instagram by any stretch. Companies did a lot of really good for themselves on Instagram. So I've nailed it in some ways and totally missed the boat in other ways. But one of the observations that I have over the years, growing an e-commerce agency, is that back then, when we saw those frontiers like YouTube and Instagram and Amazon and TikTok, it was big tech companies that saw the change coming. It was big tech companies that either developed those applications or those technologies or bought them up very quickly. But it was small brands that leveraged them to grow and sell. It was small brands that actually leveraged them as users. This is the first time since I've been in business where I've seen a frontier coming. And again, big tech is developing. Big tech is buying up the smaller companies that are creating the metaverse right now. But it's not little brands this time that are racing to participate. It's the biggest brands in the world. And I don't want you to get left behind. So the whole point of this video is not to get you to go out and do one of these 4 strategies right now. It's to start paying attention. Because if you don't hang out in the metaverse, you're going to miss what's happening. All right, guys, thank you for staying. If you stayed to the end, again, please leave me a comment. Let me know what you want me to cover. I've got a staff of 25 in e-commerce. We tend to be very forward-leaning. We are technology-oriented. We've got a team of developers. I actually would love to figure something out for you if you can tell me what you want us to focus on. All right, guys, thank you for staying. Make sure you hit the like button if you would, and we'll see you next time.